Welcome to the next segment of our interview with Siddharth Varadarajan. We're discussing the consequences of the bombings in Mumbai in Indian politics. Siddharth's the deputy editor of the leading English newspaper in India, The Hindu. Welcome, Siddharth. The bombings have been blamed on, quote, elements within Pakistan, the LET, Islamic group in Pakistan with some links to Kashmir and a broader agenda, as you told us in the last segment, about the Muslim areas of India. Some of the Pakistani authorities are saying that there's no proof there's any connection to LET. But let's talk a little bit more about the consequences within India. There's an election coming. The BJP party, the Hindu Nationalist Party, how are they responding to this bombing? And are we likely to see a rise in Hindu nationalism that in the past has led to some pretty serious communal violence against Muslims?
It's interesting that in the immediate aftermath of the terrorist attacks in Bombay, the Bharatiya Janata Party and its leader, Mr. Advani, said that we aren't going to politicize this and now is the time for national unity. And that sentiment lasted perhaps a little less than 24 hours, because as soon as the day was out, I think the party's managers figured out that this is an issue that we need to exploit in order to put the Congress on the back foot. And you had, in fact, still going on a series of provincial level elections. And I think the first indication we will get of how potent an issue this incident is going to be for the BJP will become clear when the results for 4 of these elections, in other words, Delhi, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh, are known in the first week of December. If the BJP does well, I think you can expect them to ratchet up their rhetoric and to, in a sense, paint the government into a corner. The government is on a weak wicket in any case because there is an unprecedented level of public outrage over what's happened in Bombay. At the same time, there is a lot of resentment. I think we need to appreciate the depth of public sentiment against the politicization of this tragedy. And we've seen a number of incidents where politicians have gone to try to pay their respects to the family members of those who have died. And in many cases, people have shouted at them, protested. A couple of politicians have been chased away. So I think that sentiment is also there, and I think that's going to limit, to some extent, the BJP's ability to milk this incident for electoral gain.
Who are the families blaming for this?
Well, the families aren't blaming anybody. I think it's clear that the 9 terrorists who have been shot dead are the ones responsible, and of course you have then their handlers, whichever organization they're from. The families are also upset about news that's coming of intelligence failure. As in any tragedy of this magnitude, we saw even after 9/11, for example, it becomes clear that intelligence agencies had received warnings of a more generalized nature, but translating those warnings into actionable, in terms of very specific measures, that didn't happen. And already a couple of heads of roll, the Home Minister, the Interior Minister of India has been forced to resign. The Chief Minister of Maharashtra is on his way out. This is the state of which Bombay is the capital. So there is a lot of resentment against the government and against officials and against politicians in general. But it's interesting that the wife of one of the policemen who was killed in action, he was the head of the anti-terrorism squad in Bombay, who had earlier been investigating a series of bombings conducted allegedly by Hindu extremists. And the BJP had pilloried this gentleman when he was alive. And after he died, they, of course, tried to say that he was a hero. And when Narendra Modi, the Gujarat chief minister and one of the most notorious of BJP leaders, tried to visit the family and announce a cash reward for her dead husband, Mrs. Karkare, the wife of the slain policeman, basically said, "I don't want your money." And this was, quite a dramatic news event. The channels went to town, highlighting the fact that the senior BJP leader had, in a sense, caused this kind of resentment among the family of one of the heroic policemen who died fighting these terrorists. So I think it's not clear how this is going to play out, but I think clearly the BJP, which had made terrorism a plank even before this incident, feels that it's on a strong wicket and will continue to press ahead with this issue.
Now, in Pakistan, there's Bin Laden himself, in terms of popularity, has beaten Bush in polling. There's certainly a certain amount of support for the Taliban and Islamicization in Pakistan. I don't think it's a majority, but there's a growing support. What about the Muslim areas of India? What support is there for this Islamic extremist position? And you told us in the first segment of the interview that the organization, LET, that's being blamed for this, they themselves have an agenda in terms of Sharia law and the reclaiming of Muslim areas of India. Is there any support for this within India itself?
No, not really. I mean, I think proof of this is the fact that for an operation of this kind, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, if indeed they were responsible, had to send across 10 armed gunmen by boat from Karachi, Pakistan. And even if you look at the there's a very interesting email that was sent by the group, which claimed the name of Mujahideen Hyderabad Deccan. That's the full name of the organization as they claimed it. And the letter was written in the Hindi script, but it was so full of basic spelling mistakes that it's very clear that this letter was not written by a native Hindi speaker or somebody who had studied Hindi in school, which is the case with Muslims in India, certainly in North India, wherever Hindi is spoken. So there's clearly an attempt by whoever has done this to try to present this as the handiwork of Indian Muslims. But based on the evidence we have so far, and certainly based on this letter, I think the letter proves the opposite. It's clear that Indian Muslims are not involved in this. And I think there is very little support for these kinds of activities and for that kind of agenda on the Indian side. There's resentment, no doubt, at the discrimination that Muslims in India face, and at the fact that they are at the receiving end of communal violence, police atrocities, false arrests in many cases, torture. But to suggest that that has got translated into support for this kind of senseless act, I think would be a bit far-fetched.
And we're not yet seeing this as a trigger for anti-Muslim violence.
No. In fact, the opposite sort of phenomenon has happened because in Bombay particularly, the overwhelming sentiment that we're hearing is of people saying that, look, whoever has done this is trying to attack the cultural ethos of Bombay and India, which is an ethos that prides itself on its pluralism. And you have people making pledges and lighting candles saying that, well, we aren't going to allow the terrorists to divide us on the basis of religion or ethnicity or language. So I think that's been one of the positive fallouts. In fact, after no terrorist incident in recent years has there been any communal violence. I think people have responded in a very mature manner because they know that this is the agenda of whoever has organized it. They want Hindus and Muslims to fight. They want India and Pakistan to fight. So why on earth should they be allowed to succeed?
So in terms of that India-Pakistan relationship, can the current Congress government continue a sort of rapprochement without worrying about Indian public opinion?
Well, I think Indian public opinion wants results, and I think the government of India will present its case to Pakistan. The good thing right now is that you have a civilian government in Pakistan that is trying to assert its supremacy vis-a-vis the military and is trying to crack down on these kinds of extremist groups. And you also have a situation where, quite frankly, these extremist groups, which originally were created by the Pakistani army or certainly nurtured by them, have today in large measure turned against the Pakistani military. So if the Pakistani army has a sense of self-survival, surely they would find it in their interest to act against these groups. So I think, in many ways, we are in a curious sort of situation where, if the government of Pakistan and the Pakistani military are serious about, their long-term, the long-term survival and viability of Pakistan as a nation state, they really need to act. This isn't India's problem alone. This is Pakistan's. It's a major problem for Pakistan. It's a major problem for the United States. And I think the fact that people across the world are now realizing that this issue, this madness really has to be put an end to. I think the pressure on the Pakistani government and the Pakistani military from India and, of course, from the United States and the rest of the world to take action as and when the evidence is given will be enormous, and it will be very hard for them to counter. And I think for that reason, I am not pessimistic about the India-Pakistan relationship right now. Certainly, I do not subscribe to the idea that relations are going to take a nosedive and that there can be another conflict. I think all of that is very far-fetched. Certainly, there are public pressures, there are political pressures, but I don't see that happening right now.
Thank you very much, Siddharth, and thank you for joining us.
Donate today and receive a new documentary film available to members of the REALnews Network. The History of the National Security State with legendary author Gore Vidal. Bonus features of the DVD include an in-depth response to Vidal from ex-CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who served under 7 U.S. presidents, an exclusive interview with Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff Larry Wilkerson, and an insightful interview with oil policy analyst Antonia Juhas.
The news magazine of the screen. Living glimpses of history in the making.
Hollywood and Washington is a symbiotic relationship. They both deal with illusions. Reality doesn't often play much of a part. I think I saw through the myth of the Cold War almost from the beginning. I was a Washington political kid from a political family. Roosevelt first had radio because he had this great speaking voice and everyone liked to hear. Truman proceeded to break every arrangement that Roosevelt had set up for a peaceful coexistence. And Truman thought that it would be a good idea. Why not just stay armed all the time? And then he devised the national security state. You've got to go up and swear allegiance to the United States or else you're a commie. I mean, we had imported fascism. We get Dwight Eisenhower, who said that we have this great military industrial complex. It is a dangerous thing. And he said this is going to change everything. And the way our country's governed, it's going to change us politically. Along comes Jack Kennedy, who wanted to make his mark, believed in the Cold War. But he said in this kind of politics, it is the appearance of things that matters. I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. The national security state still exists, only it isn't communism anymore, it's terrorism. This is the most serious thing that has happened in the history of the United States. Knowledge is power. We need an honest news system.
We need the real news.
This is the sort of thing we can build right now without anyone else's permission from the government or from the business community. It's the power's in our hands.
If we're not going to sleepwalk into more wars, we think we need to start with a television news network that won't bow to pressure and has the courage to seek facts. And that means independent economics. And that's why we need you.
Make a tax-deductible donation now of at least $10 a month or a one-time give of at least $75. As a thank you for your support, we will send you the new documentary film, The History of the National Security State.